A guy called Peter Senge talked about points of leverage, and I think the real exciting thing that for us is that we've identified what I think are very powerful points of leverage in a system. So, the bottom line is you know where to start. You go on the courses, you wouldn't know what to do differently on Monday. You get our stuff, and you know exactly what to do on Monday. And the two critical points of leverage for us are understanding demand, understanding what matters to customers, and understanding what it is in the system that's actually driving people's behaviour. Because if you don't understand what's in the system that's driving behaviour, you can tinker away and try changing things, but nothing changes because you haven't changed the underlying conditions.
I think one of the most incredible things for me when I started this work and started going into organisations was that we do the work with the people who are doing this day in, day out. And the kind of relief that you get from them as you're giving them a way of understanding and doing something to the stuff that they're dealing with all the time that they hate. So this idea of demand, and that you have value demand and failure demand. And actually the failure demand is as a result of us not doing something right for the customer. And you can actually go and find the root cause and get rid of it, which just causes huge relief to them, because it's an emotional thing for them. If they have a day where all of the calls they're getting in are failure, what we would call failure demand, it's not a happy time. Their heart sinks. So to give them a way of recognising it and then understanding where it's coming from and doing something about it, I think is particularly powerful.
You're only ever going to kind of be able to help people who are saying, I'm curious, can you help me, look at the things I currently do from a different point of view and take on a systems perspective. And there's a guy that I've done a lot of work with in London who works for a local authority, a senior leader, who is very happy to go around telling stories about all of the things he used to do that, with his new perspective, don't seem so clever. He's the manager of housing benefits and local service centres in a London authority, and he had a problem a couple of years ago with customers queuing out of the door in their one-stop shops in London, and his solution at the time was to move the reception desk 10 feet further back into the office. Now, having spent some time with us, thinking about his system differently and understanding the real nature of customer demand, for example, what he learnt was that 3/4 of the people that were in that queue didn't need to be in there in the first place, that he'd created them himself because of the way his work was designed and managed.
Well, what made the light go on for me personally, and what I've now found makes the light go on for a number of clients, is the fact that they see that everything is focused around them in terms of understanding how you can make their customers, shape their service around what the customers actually want in terms of the customer's nominal value, as we call it. In other words, if that's what they want, that's what you give them, as opposed to trying to make the customer conform to what you want. And the counterintuitive realization that you have is that, gosh, this is actually, it's cheaper, it's more efficient, it's more effective, and it's actually more pleasant for staff to deliver what customers want, when they want it, how they want it, and so everybody wins. And it's not until you sit down and understand that realization, actually understand it, as opposed to say, oh yes, that's very good, but actually understand what it means in terms of how you can improve your service, how you can actually achieve cost savings, proper cost savings, by focusing on cost as an outcome rather than cost as an output, which a lot of people do with things such as activity-based costing, for example. And the other good thing is that as you do that, as service improves and costs fall, then the revenues in private sector, the revenues go up. In public sector, you can maximise the available revenue that you have for the benefit of the public. So that everybody wins.
Many organisations talk about being customer focused and so on, but actually when you examine the way the work works, they're not really customer focused. It's what we call top down on the traditional command and control side of things. So they decide what matters to customers and set up either service standards or methods of work or design processes to deliver what they think matters to customers. It's not actually driven by the customers. And what we found is that the fastest way to make change is to understand what really matters to your customers in this particular part of your system and use that to design the way the work works. And that gets you good, fast, sustainable results. And a lot of the organisations believe, and they're spending money on doing stuff like customer satisfaction data. They all say we know what matters to our customers, but actually they don't. They've sort of decided what matters, and they do a lot of surveys and stuff like that. But actually the questions they're asking are, how well did we do it to you? Not what matters to you when you do business with us. And if you ask the how well did we do it to you question, first off, in Vanguard terms, we say we should know that. That should be our current capability data to respond to the demands they've made. But secondly, it doesn't tell you what you need to do to improve. And so many of the things that are out in the marketplace today that are supposed to drive change from a customer point of view simply don't. So one of the key things that we always start with is outside in. We start with the customer and look at what is the demand they're making for service, what then happens to that in the flow, and what is our response to that demand. And understanding truly what matters to customers in that specific way is actually one of the biggest levers for change that you can get.
I heard John Seddon speaking in the company, and when he started talking about the different types of demands that firms that were placed in firms, the different types of things that customers are asking them for. He was talking about how functionalisation sub-optimises performance, and every organisation I'd worked in up to that point was designed in a way that he was described wasn't working. So, for me, having that different paradigm opened my eyes to a different way of looking at the organisation. And the interesting thing is that as soon as you start looking at the organisation in that way, you can't start looking back the old way. When I talk to people, I describe it as making the invisible visible. And once you see it, then you can't help but see it.